My dad ordered me to cover my brother's $3,000 bill. I said no. Soon after, they demanded I give him my car. I refused again. They labeled me selfish and threw me out. A year later, they called me. I've always known my place in the family pecking order. If my brother Dylan is the chandelier, flashy, high up, always polished, but utterly useless the moment the power goes out, then I'm the tired hallway bulb nobody ever replaces. Growing up, I was the quiet kid, which in our house translated to the person who wouldn't make a fuss if everyone ignored him. Dylan, though, could sneeze and my parents would throw him a parade. He flunked 7th grade math and got a private tutor plus a brand new laptop because it'll help him focus, while I pulled a B+ in physics and they wanted a lecture about why it wasn't an A. For a while I didn't resent it. I'd learned to be the background noise in my own home. While Dylan was posting gym selfies with things like #rise and grind and #ceiling training, I was clocking hours as a part-time line cook, tucking every spare dollar away. My car was a dented silver Camry I rebuilt with a buddy from trade school. It wasn't much to look at, but it ran, and every bolt on that thing was paid for by me. So yeah, not flashy. Stable. Quiet. Maybe boring. But steady. Then the call came. It was a Tuesday night, I remember, the kind of evening when leftover pasta suddenly feels like a treat. I just punched out and was halfway through a reheated meatball when Frank rang. "Hey, kiddo," he said, his voice all fake sunshine, which should have been my first clue. "What's up?" I asked, bracing myself. "It's about Dylan," he said. "He's hit a little financial bump." A bump? This was the same guy who'd blown $3,000 on sneakers, concert tickets, and something called crypto coaching. I'd later see the bank statement, and one charge literally read, VIP Club, no refunds. Frank cleared his throat and explained that Dylan had a credit card bill coming due and the interest was stacking up, and they were wondering if I could help. Help him out how? I played dumb. "You've got savings, right?" I nearly choked on my meatball. "You want me to pay his $3,000 credit card bill?" Frank sighed like I was the problem. "It's just until he gets back on his feet. Family supports family." That line, family supports family, landed funny after all the times they told me walking more was good cardio instead of buying me tires. Frank said I was more responsible and would recover faster. Responsible. The word they use when they want someone to bail out the Titanic after it hits an iceberg. I told him no. Calmly. Politely. "No," he said, stunned. Just like that. He hung up without a goodbye. 2 days later, Linda called. I was thinking she might take the softer approach, but she didn't. "Why are you being so cold?" she asked, her voice tight with judgment. "It's just money." I laughed, and she fired back. "Then give him yours. Don't be rude." "He's your brother," she snapped. "Yes. My adult brother who has a gym membership pricier than my rent." She hung up, too. For a second, I thought maybe that'd be it. A couple weeks of disappointment, and then they'd forget again that I existed. I was wrong. Saturday rolled around, and out of habit, I went to family dinner. Roast chicken, strained small talk, Dylan parading a new gold watch like it came free in a cereal box. Midway through dessert, my favorite, of all things, peach cobbler, Frank casually mentioned that Dylan's car was out of commission and wondered if maybe he could borrow mine for a while. I put my fork down. "Excuse me," I said. "It's not forever," Linda hurried to add. "Just until he figures things out." So now I was supposed to hand him my car? Dylan shrugged like my property was a communal bike everyone could take for a spin. "You barely drive it," he said. I stood up. Frank sighed and said exactly what they always say. "I make things about myself." "No," I said. "You do." I'd simply stopped pretending it didn't sting. The silence afterward was loud enough to hurt. They called me selfish, ungrateful, accused me of tearing the family apart over a couple grand and a used car, and then out it came. Not dramatic, no suitcase theatrics. Just Frank suggesting I take some time away from the house until I remember what family means. That night I slept in the Camry they thought Dylan should be using. The first night in the car felt like a list of humiliations. Cramped. Freezing. Exactly as degrading as you'd expect. I had one hoodie, 2 fast food napkins folded into a sad pillow, and a dashboard light that wouldn't stop blinking. Maintenance required. I parked outside a 24-hour diner where I used to mop when I was 16, and for reasons I couldn't fully explain, falling asleep there felt like a full circle moment. All the scrubbing and scrimping I did to leave places like that, only to end up slumped in the driver's seat like a joke. Next morning, I went back to work like nothing had happened. I didn't want pity. My coworkers asked if I was tired, and I cracked a joke about becoming one with the grind. They laughed, but I didn't. For the next few weeks, I lived like a ghost who still had a key. The Camry was my bed. Showers came at the gym. Laundry at a coin op that smelled like burned popcorn. Meals whatever I could heat in a microwave or eat straight from a can. I didn't reach out to them, and they didn't reach out to me. No, how are you? No, do you need anything? Just silence. That might have been bearable, except for what came next. Dylan posted a video called "Haters Gonna Hate. Family Should Support You Anyway," which got like 11 views and one weird comment from some guy named Jim Goblin 88. In the clip, he claimed certain family members cut him off out of jealousy and that he wasn't built for normal life like the rest of us. Enjoy your protein shakes fueled by other people's guilt, pal. It stung more than I cared to admit. Not because I wanted his approval, but because I'd been holding on to this tiny, foolish hope that someone would realize I wasn't the villain in this story. Instead, they picked their favorite, and I found out I was disposable. Around the second month of living out of my car, my manager pulled me aside. "Eli," he said, "are you doing okay?" I froze, thinking I'd hidden it better. Then he handed me an envelope and told me I'd been working open to close 6 days straight without missing a shift. And that wasn't just dependable, it was desperate. Inside was a check, not a bonus, but an interest-free loan. I didn't cry in front of him, but when I sat back in the Camry and saw the number, I laid my forehead against the wheel and broke down. That check got me into a tiny studio over a laundromat where the dryers rattled all night and the door jammed whenever it rained, but it was mine. A mattress on the floor felt like pure luxury after weeks of trying to sleep with a seatbelt buckle digging into my ribs. From there, life slowly improved. I picked up weekend gigs fixing appliances, taking on whatever odd jobs I could manage. I didn't have time for hobbies and barely enough energy to do more than eat, work, and keep breathing, but something was taking shape, brick by brick. Meanwhile, Dylan was still circling the drain, hopping from one short-lived job to another. I didn't know all the details, but his messy social posts and vague tweets painted the picture. Not a good fit, toxic environment, excuses stacking up like receipts. One story I heard was that he showed up to an interview in a muscle shirt and wondered why it didn't work out. And Frank and Linda? They never reached out. Not when I got promoted, not when I moved to a slightly better apartment, not even when I finally bought my first real toolbox with my name engraved on it, something I'd dreamed of since high school. Silence. Until one day it broke. A call came in from an unknown number, and against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello," I said. There was a pause, then Linda's voice, soft and uneasy. "Eli?" I didn't speak. "I know it's been a while," she said carefully. "No kidding." She cleared her throat and explained that she and Frank wanted me to come by that weekend just to talk. I didn't agree and didn't refuse. I simply hung up. 3 days later, a text came from Frank. "You're being immature. This is your family." Then another from Dylan. "Real mature, bro, tantrums over. Time to grow up." I stared at the screen, shaking my head. They hadn't changed, but I had. I was just getting started. And I didn't text back. Not to be dramatic, but because I had nothing left to say. After everything, the manipulation, the silence, the exile over a sneaker bill, they still pictured me as the problem. They wanted brunch like we were a quirky sitcom family, not people who'd kick me out over nonsense. Yet a week later, my curiosity, and honestly my appetite, got the better of me. I agreed to meet them in neutral territory, a little cafe downtown with pancakes stacked like Jenga blocks and lattes that charged extra for oat milk, like it was emotional labor. I walked in, and there they were. Linda waved like I'd come home from a war. Frank gave a stiff nod. Dylan didn't even look up from his avocado toast. "Eli," Linda said, standing to hug me. I hesitated but let her, mostly because the waitress was watching and I didn't want drama before my overpriced coffee. We sat in silence until Linda said, "We're so glad you came, aren't we?" And elbowed Frank, who grunted. "What's this about?" I asked. She folded her hands as if in prayer. "We just want things back the way they were." I blinked. "You mean when I was your ATM and chauffeur?" "Eli," Frank snapped, but I kept going. "Let's take a walk down memory lane. Was it before or after you tossed me out because I wouldn't donate my car to the Dylan Foundation for Professional Screw-Ups?" Dylan finally looked up. "Dude, why are you still bitter?" I actually laughed. Maybe because I slept in that car for weeks while you posted stolen quotes from The Rock. Linda tried to shush us. Let's not fight. That's not why we asked you here. Oh, I said, sipping my coffee. Then what? Frank leaned forward. Dylan's having a rough time. His credit's wrecked, he can't get approved for a car loan, and he's got interviews, but no way to get there. We thought maybe you could help. There it was, the real reason. Not reconciliation, just convenience. I already helped, I said evenly, by not bailing him out. Maybe now he'll learn. That's harsh, Linda whispered. No, I told her. What's harsh is ignoring me for a year and then calling pancakes a reunion. Frank scowled. You've changed. Yeah, I said. I stopped apologizing for refusing to be a doormat. Dylan rolled his eyes. Forget it, Mom. He thinks he's better than us. I stood, laid a 10 on the table for the coffee, and said, not better, just done. I walked out before they could answer. Did I feel guilty? Sure, in that knee-jerk way where everything you were raised to believe clashes with what you know is right. Family first, always give, never rock the boat. But that guilt faded when I remembered. They never felt guilty for what they did to me. Later that night, I got a string of texts from Linda. You really hurt your brother. He's struggling. We just wanted to give him a chance. You don't understand, Dylan's had it rough too. I didn't answer. Instead, I silenced the phone and opened my laptop, because while they were trying to drag me backward, I was already 2 months deep into something that might change everything. I was building my own future, and they had no idea. Let me rewind a bit, to about a month before that so-called apology brunch, back when the silence was still heavy and Dylan was busy branding himself as an entrepreneur in exile. On Instagram, I was quietly doing something that felt a lot like building an actual life. I'd always been good at fixing things, not the poetic kind where you mend souls or patch relationships, but literal stuff. Dishwashers, HVAC units, garage doors, even a crooked ceiling fan that looked like it wanted to take someone's head off. I liked the simplicity of it. Tools meet broken thing, problem solved. So after I moved into that creaky studio above the laundromat, I started helping tenants with random repairs for $20 and a six-pack, and you'd be surprised how much goodwill a silent dryer will earn you. Word spread slowly. A neighbor's garbage disposal, then a thermostat for a friend of that neighbor, a water heater check that turned into hanging shelves, and yes, I leveled them with a laser level, because why not classy? The real turning point was replacing a whole water heater for someone whose landlord ghosted them for a week. I followed a 6-hour tutorial, didn't blow anything up, and walked out with $300 in cash and a whole lot of sweaty pipe wrench pride. That single moment made me sit up. If people would pay for honest labor and my hands could deliver, what was I waiting for? I filed a business name, Eli Fixes Things. Corny, blunt mine. I bought a used white van that looked like it had survived 3 midlife crises. Its left mirror rattling if you sneezed and smelling permanently of old garlic, but it ran. I spent half a night cleaning it and slapped on a magnetic sign. Eli Fixes Things, no gimmicks. Just wrenches. Then I printed flyers with tear-off tabs like it was 2006 and left them at hardware stores, gas stations, laundromats, anywhere that didn't kick me out. Even taped one to the diner's window where I'd mop floors for $7. Jobs started rolling in. Fixing ovens at 7 a.m., patching drywall at noon, unclogging toilets at 9 p.m., collapsing into bed with my shirt still smelling like WD-40. Some nights I iced my back with frozen peas because I couldn't afford a massage. Other nights I fell asleep Googling torque specs. Every busted pipe, loose hinge, and overloaded circuit felt like mine. I was tired and sore, but I was thriving. 3 months and I hit $10,000 in revenue. $10,000 from duct tape and stubbornness, and bought the rolling tool chest I drooled over for years. Bright red, soft closed drawers, built-in charger, and a brushed steel nameplate on top, that Reddy Walker. I ran my fingers over that plate for a long time. It wasn't Caleb's brother or the disappointment. It was me. That same week, a property manager I'd done HVAC for texted and said they had a commercial job opening and wanted to list me as a preferred vendor. I said yes, obviously, and only later realized the job was in the very building where Dylan had tried and failed to get hired twice. While he was busy tweeting about haters and grind set, I was literally in the basement swapping filters and getting paid $90 an hour. He never saw me, but I saw him on the security footage when I installed their new camera system. walking into the lobby with a blazer that still had the tag sticking out, trying to charm reception, and not even getting buzzed in. I didn't brag. I didn't post. I kept building. Then one word changed everything. Hey. The text arrived on a Thursday while I was in a crawl space, forehead slick with sweat, flashlight clenched between my teeth, wrestling a corroded pipe. It was from Dylan, not Mom, not Dad. Dylan, the same guy who once dismissed HVAC as just cleaning vents with a fancy vacuum. The same guy who rolled his eyes when I refused to hand over my car. I wiped my hands on my jeans, stared at the screen, and typed back, "What's up?" He answered instantly, like he'd been rehearsing. "Can we talk? It's important." I didn't know what to expect. A grovel, another family supports family, guilt trip, but this was different and messy. We met at the same cafe where the apology brunch had flopped. This time Dylan wore sweats and scuffed sneakers. No watch, no smug smirk, just dark circles and a knee that bounced nonstop. "Look," he said before I'd even sat. "I'm sorry, okay? I know I was a jerk." My eyebrows went into that automatic sarcastic arch you think, he groaned. "Don't make me grovel. I'm already humiliated enough." Weird apology opener, I thought, but then he leaned in and said, "I'm in trouble." He kept talking, lost his last gig again, credit in the negatives, behind on rent, and Mom and Dad were tapped out. They told him they couldn't help anymore. Then, with a bitterness that stung, he said they'd mentioned me, that maybe I could help now that I was so stable. I nearly choked on my coffee. "So now I'm the stable one?" he whispered. "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't desperate," he said, and rattled off more. "No gas money. Roommate threatening to toss him. Should have taken my car when you had the chance." I didn't skip a beat when I answered, which made him wince. "I know I screwed up, okay? But I figured maybe you'd have a job." "I can do stuff," Dylan said. "I can lift, move, whatever. You've got your own business now, right?" I just stared at him, letting the silence stretch. For a moment, some younger part of me, the version that once craved his approval, wanted to say yes. But the me sitting there remembered too much. The laughs at my expense, the cutting remarks, the cold silence, and how this so-called apology was wedged between "I'm desperate" and "Can you hire me?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "I don't hire family," I said finally. His expression fell. "You're serious?" I nodded. "Look, I hope things turn around for you. But this isn't a charity, it's a business. And right now, you're not exactly a glowing reference." The words hit him like a slap. "But you're my brother." "You're right," I said. "I am. And when I needed somewhere to sleep, you called me dramatic. When I got thrown out, you posted gym selfies. That was different." "No," I cut in. "It wasn't. You just didn't care until it burned you, too." He didn't argue. Just looked at me. Not smug, not angry, just bone-deep tired. Then he stood, gave a stiff nod, and walked out. I didn't follow. Because I had an actual client waiting. A business to run. And because the truth was, I had already helped him. I'd shown him what accountability looks like. The rest was up to him. A week after turning Dylan down, the silence that followed wasn't normal. It was tactical. The kind of hush that means someone's cooking up a family plan and you're about to get roped in. Then came the voicemail. Linda's voice, shaky, but not the "I miss you" son kind. This was her emergency tone, the same one she used to break out when someone forgot to thaw the turkey on Thanksgiving. "Eli, I know you're still upset, but we have a situation. Please call back." I didn't. 20 minutes later, another, "Please. It's about the house." That made me pay attention. Frank and Linda's place was a 2-story colonial with a roof older than Dylan's ambition. The last time I'd been there, I'd noticed a soft patch in the attic. Told Frank the roof was leaking, warned him it could cause serious damage if ignored. He scoffed and told me I watched too much DIY TV. Turns out water doesn't care about pride or your opinion of your handyman's son. I finally texted back, "What happened?" The phone rang almost instantly. Linda answered, skipping any pleasantries. "Eli, the upstairs hallway ceiling collapsed. There's water damage, mold, and your father slipped on the wet carpet trying to check the fuse box." "Is he okay?" I asked. "He's bruised," she said, "but the bigger problem is we need help. The insurance won't cover it, said it was preventable." Which, let's face it, it was. The contractor quoted nearly 10 grand. We don't have that kind of money. And there it was. "So," I said flatly, "you ignored my warning a year ago, and now you want me to fix it for free?" Silence. "Then, we thought maybe you'd want to help your family. Be the bigger person. I let that sit a beat. Funny, I said. When I was living in my car, the only thing you gave me was attitude. We didn't mean to. She started. I asked you to hear me back then. You told me to leave. Said I needed to grow up. So I did. And part of growing up is saying no when I'm being used. There was a pause. Then Frank's voice bellowed in the background, frustrated. If he doesn't want to help, fine. We'll handle it ourselves. To which I calmly replied, please do. Then I hung up. Not because I didn't care. I did. It was still my childhood home, still my dad, even if he treated me like a spare organ donor. But I'd spent a year learning something they never taught me. Love doesn't mean abandoning your boundaries. Still, I wasn't made of stone. The next day, I called a roofer I trusted from other jobs, gave him the address, asked him to quote it properly, and offer a payment plan if they needed. I'm not doing charity, I told him. But if they want to pay someone fair and honest, send me the invoice. I'll make sure it's legit. He agreed. 2 days later, he texted back. They turned down the quote. Went with a cheaper guy, no license, shady as hell. I just shook my head. Same pattern. Cut corners. Demand miracles. Blame the one person who told the truth. But this time, I wasn't even mad. Because something else landed on my desk that very day. A mid-sized property management company signed me on after seeing my work on a duplex. They wanted me as a preferred vendor. We sat down, ran numbers, shook hands. As I was signing the contract, the manager said, you'll start with 6 buildings. One of them's on Westbrook Street. Little rundown place, roof damage. I blinked. Westbrook Street. He nodded. Yeah, the owners sold it instead of paying for repairs. Bank took it back. We're turning it into a rental. I knew that address. It was Frank and Linda's house. Later, I sat in my van 3 doors down, just staring at it. The cracked driveway. The faded green shutters. Mom's hydrangeas, now brown and shriveled. The mailbox hanging by a single screw, like the family that once lived inside. After all their pride, all the times they called me selfish and ungrateful, they'd handed the house to the bank rather than deal with the problem I warned them about. And I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt strangely at peace, like some cosmic janitor had come by overnight and swept away years of emotional clutter. All that was left now was to renovate it. Because, yeah, the firm I'd signed with wanted me to be the one handling repairs on that property. Me, the son who wasn't responsible enough to own a house. The son they shoved out with nothing but a backpack and a set of keys. I told the company I'd check it out myself. The lockbox code clicked open easy. The front door groaned the same way it always had when I used to sneak out after curfew. The smell inside was mildew, dust, and something else. That stale regret you can almost taste in houses that get abandoned too fast. I walked the hallway, stepping over peeling laminate, past the living room where Dylan once told me I'd never be successful because I liked tools too much. In the kitchen, I paused, right where Frank once looked me in the eye and said, "You're not management material. You're just labor." And now, that labor was in charge of gutting the place. I took photos. Warped ceiling panels, black mold in the corners, hallway floors soft under my boots. The rot had spread farther than I imagined. Insurance wouldn't cover a cent honestly. They'd been lucky to walk away when they did. But then came the twist. 2 days later, my phone rang with a blocked number. I let it roll to voicemail. It was Linda. Eli, we didn't know. We didn't know you were tied to that company. The agent never told us. Please call me. Your father is, he's devastated. I replayed it twice, just to hear that word again. Devastated. Hours later, another call. This time Dylan. Dude, what the hell? You're working for the company that bought our house. You're renovating it? Are you trying to humiliate us? I didn't respond. Instead, I did what I do best. Showed up, quiet and professional, clipboard in hand, crew behind me. And we worked. Over the next weeks, I tore out tile, scrubbed mold, reinforced attic beams, replaced insulation, breathed new life into the house. Clean, strong, beautiful even. No memories, no guilt. Just a fresh start for some new family. One that wouldn't kick their kid out for refusing to bankroll someone else's mess. When the job wrapped, I walked through one last time before handing it back to the firm. It didn't feel like home. It didn't feel like victory. It felt done. Closure in drywall form. Then, one quiet Sunday morning, my phone buzzed. A text from Frank. Just 2 words. We're sorry. No speech. No plea. No follow-up. And oddly, that was enough. Because the very next day, the regional director called. Eli, The work you did on Westbrook was fantastic. We've got more properties lined up. Bigger projects. You interested? You already know I said yes. While they were still picking through the ashes of what they'd lost, I was already laying foundations for what came next. 6 months later, an envelope arrived. Plain, no return address, my name written in tight handwriting I recognized. Inside was a simple card. No glitter, no long ramble. Just, we miss you. And below, in smaller letters, Dylan's been staying with us. We're trying to get back on our feet. The apartment's small. The heater's busted. But we're managing. Hope you're doing okay. That was it. No ask. No demand. No guilt trip. And for once I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel like I owed them. Because by then, I wasn't just okay. I had 3 trucks on the road, 2 full-time crews, and an office with my name on the lease. Clients who trusted me. A business built out of rust, rejection, and my own hands. And every time someone handed me a check, every time I heard, "Thank you, Eli, you saved us," I thought back to that night in the driveway, to Frank's voice barking, "You're selfish. Get out." Turns out leaving was the best choice I ever made. Because sometimes the only way to build your own life is to walk away from the people who never helped you build. Still, I sent one reply. One last time. I mailed them an envelope with no return address. Inside was a copy of the final invoice from their old house. Client, Westbrook Street renovation. Lead contractor, Eli Walker. Balance, paid in full. And beneath it, I wrote just one line. The house got a second chance. So did I? Then I sealed it and went back to work. Because I wasn't chasing revenge. I was too busy winning.